Welcome back to another episode of Inside Multifamily. Very excited today to have again Colin join me. Colin, how you doing?
Doing well. Glad to be here again.
Absolutely. And yeah, so thanks again to Salto for sponsoring this to make this happen. So I'm on the road today. Colin's back at home. Hopefully the audio is all right, but we're going to make it work. So we thought what we do today is have two conversations. Number one, a press release went out this morning for Stratis IoT was acquired by Realpage, and we'll talk about that. And then we thought we'd break it down and have a conversation just about locks in general for multifamily, but really try to stay away from a technical conversation around it, but have more of I would call it more of a mainstream conversation around locks and what matters, what doesn't, our views on those. So I thought that'd be a good conversation to have because that's typically the first engagement that we have with people is around that. So why don't we kick it off? So Colin, what are your thoughts on the Realpage acquisition of Stratus?
Yeah, it's big news. Exciting, I think, for the multifamily market as a whole. Realpage has been a big player for a long time, and Stratus has certainly been making waves and really focusing on that resident experience, doing some really cool things there. And now they've started to graduate into the entire building and energy management, access control. So I think it's really exciting for us at Salto in particular. We're finishing up an integration with Stratus that we've gone live with in a couple of applications. So for us, it's a really exciting time and very interesting to see kind of where Realpage takes this and where Stratus takes this. So for us, I think it's exciting and shows how important the IoT platform and the entire building application and resident experience is becoming in the multifamily space.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part, right? So there's no clear sort of testament to how important this stuff is for a company to make an acquisition, which, out of all of the companies that are doing this, it's probably the largest one, right? So you'd figure the acquisition cost associated to doing it was not, a couple dollars. It was a good amount of dollars. So I think it's a testament to the importance where we've been talking about this sort of featureization of access control into an overall larger value proposition. This is a good piece that drops for that. And Realpage bringing that in-house now to control that a bit more than just partnering on that end, right? So it also makes you wonder, what you're already going to do next in some of these other ones, right? So it's in line with the conversation that we've been having about vertically integrating in the multifamily, probably looking a lot like the hospitality space where the software and the hardware, it's really probably going to be hard to know the difference. And, the specifications change at that point, how it gets done, how it gets to market. So it's pretty exciting. And then I think the last part is congratulations to Felicity and team over there, because that's a lot of hard work, a lot of time. That's a lot of late nights and punching through stuff when, it may be one of those ideas, if you meet a lot of the people that work there, they were bought into a vision and an idea of what they were doing. And it probably took a little bit longer than maybe they anticipated to happen, but, with time, good things come. So I couldn't be happier for what I believe is a really good group of people. And I'm excited to now actually see, I think as these things get tighter together, real value creation becomes even better. So I think it's exciting and it's great news.
I second that. I mean, I'm really happy for the team over there at Stratus. As I said, we've been working with them and have had a ton of fun working with them. I know what they've bought into and the work that they have put in. So I would definitely second that. Congratulations to that entire team. So.
Yeah, I'm sure every company in that space right now, big and small, is, the phones are ringing and people are wondering sort of who's next and what's next. So should be interesting to see what happens. I think all of them are, everyone that I've met has been testament of that. So probably going to see some more investments and some more acquisitions. I think it's only going to get greater on that end. So, all right, so good. So we'll shift gears. Nice little quick segue into locks. So multifamily access control locks. Now, I'll kick it off with a couple statements. Colin, you let me know what you think and your impressions of this. But our industry, again, I'm going to generalize and I'm going to go peg to peg just to sort of create a little bit of space and maybe hopefully aggravate a couple people and make some people happy. I don't know. We'll see. But, historically, we've been really, really focused on the heavy, secure mechanical lock side. Then it became a bit digital, but still carrying a lot of the heavy mechanical from a safety point of view as a lock, right? So makes sense, needs to be there. Then you have this world that's coming that I call them gadgets, more or less, in that side, right? Where you have more consumer facing type products that also have started to get introduced into the place into the spaces because they want it to interact with software a bit better. And those locks seem to be built more software centric in a lot of ways. Then you have in the middle, I would say, are lock companies that understand software, still rooted in hardware, that are making a go at it, trying to balancing between that gadget, what I would say more convenience and the security on that side. Now, what are your takes on how you see the market? Because I got to believe as more intention comes to it, I actually think it hurts the gadget side. And, if you can get the features of a gadget, but with the safety of what comes with, a little bit heavier steel, that middle part seems to be the right space to be looking for partners.
Yeah, I think there's some additional challenges that maybe get forgotten when you start to look at it just as hardware and gadgets, right? There's a lot of rules and regulations associated with enter and exit and UL listing and grade 1 requirement, grade 2 requirement. So I think especially when you start talking about the multifamily space versus the single family residential, where I think you can get away with some of the gadgetry and stuff like that. And I agree. I think you're starting to see some people want to migrate into that gadget space a little bit in the multifamily. But some of the times those regulations are forgotten about and making sure we deliver the resident experience as we've been talking about, and that safety and security, and meeting those general building requirements and laws that are there, really force you to drive to that middle space. I don't think you can maybe deliver a gadget type of lock in that space and meet all of those requirements. And if we just stay in the high grade steel secure function, we're never going to deliver that resident experience. So that combination of resident desire, gadget desire, need to integrate is certainly there, but we've got to maintain and keep in line with those requirements that are there. So I don't think there's a magic answer, right? I think you can as an organization maybe need to lean one side or the other of that center and still be successful, but I don't think you can be successful out at one end or the other of that range.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. And I mean, that's why you have fire ratings and things like that and code requirements and the rest of it. So finding that nice balance, that's ultimately who's going to win in that space, is someone that can go into it. And I do think, though, what's nice is both the edges are going to force the other ones to come to the middle. And again, if you can figure out how to balance those two, you're ultimately going to win long term on that end.
And I think that, like you just said, that's also going to breed some really cool innovation, right? Because people are going to demand some of that gadget stuff over here that we have to bring into play, and can bring some really cool innovation. I think at Salto, just a quick blurb on ourselves, we've done some really cool stuff, I think, with our Fusion and our Element lineups of adding a second pocket to deliver some of that gadget and maintaining some of those levels of look and feel and all of that while delivering some of that. So it does force some innovation in that space, which is really fun right now, I think, from a lock manufacturer side.
Yeah, I agree. Now, what are your thoughts on Keyway versus no Keyway? This to me, this is like, it's starting to become religion more than it is like a practical. But in some cases, because I think if I'm not mistaken, like in New York, there's some rules now around it and some other marketplaces. So it's actually now legitimate when you talk about the rules on the side of it. I feel like you could go either way, but you give me yours first and I'll give you mine.
I don't think I can draw a line in the sand, right? We certainly offer our lock sets with keyways, and understand the desire to maintain some of that control and some of that operational capacity. Um, but I also think, we've come so far, both mechanically and technology wise, in our lock sets that um, I don't find a keyway needed in most cases. If somebody wants it, we certainly deliver it, and we still do sell a number of lock sets with a keyway included. Um, but I don't think it's necessary and required to deliver the operational desired outcome from these lock sets.
Yeah, my take is this is a classic example of a handful of things. But number one, it's sort of the desire that some people within the industry and outside of it have to get away from keys, right? Because the belief is we don't need them. So it's sort of like, all right, let's just go to it and then, drive a specification or have a conversation around why you don't need it. So like a spec differentiation on that end. And then you have a whole group that invested in them and put them into the lock. So they're having the conversation about why you need to have them. And so there's like, that it creates the two camps. I also think though, from a buyer's perspective, back to, I think it was our first one that we did here about how to buy without worry. In a lot of cases, comes down to, I think, either bad experiences in the past where there's a belief that I need a fail safe because I'm not confident in the technology working, or they legitimately had a problem where the idea was that, I had to come out and drill out the keyway or whatever or the key to get in to that. So there's I think over time that the people will start to see a shift in that to where you don't necessarily need to have a keyway. But I think it's one of those things that, again, maybe it's use case driven too, right? Where in some cases you do, and in other cases you don't, where you would need them. And that's how you would specify them at that point versus just saying, all right, every place has to have them because we just want to have it that way. I mean, those are my thoughts on sort of why we have and why we don't. I think it's confidence. And I think it's because people already they built products with them. So of course you got to sell them with it.
I think the experience one is probably the biggest there, right? Obviously, bad experiences are gonna force that hand. Comfort level, as we've talked about it, is going to force that. And I don't know, I would hope that it's not so much of we already built a product that has to have a keyway. I'm sure that's out there, but hopefully we're seeing less of that they can't, retrofit or something. But I think on that retrofit point, some of it is also going to be the current door and the current hardware setup, with the unknown, I would say, of kind of new builds in this market, and the remodel and retrofit and Class B and Class C's being upgraded with electronic locks, and maybe even trying to move a Class C to a Class B apartment and some of that. I think you're going to see a lot of demand in that retrofit space, and the current door and current hardware is really going to drive some of that stuff. Are we going to replace cylinders with a Neo cylinder from Salto or something similar to that? There may be some requirements to keep keyways because of that, right? Without knowing what hardware is on there and the door setup. It's important to keep an open mind, and I think look into understand a little bit more of what you currently have on the door and stuff like that, because this retrofit piece, when it comes to the lock set on a retrofit, that is far more complicated than a new build, right? With a new build, we have all the options in the world open to us. When we go to retrofit, we don't have all the options, right? Unless we want to replace the door, which is a viable option, but it can often add some expenses too. So I think that'll be a really, really interesting piece, and just something for people to be aware of. It's not, hey, I want that lock set to retrofit this door. We gotta understand some more stuff before we pick that lock set in a retrofit scenario.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you lead right into the conversation around, like I posted, I think it was last week's, but there was conversation around, we always try to solve it by the door, by the lock, but it may actually be a door thing that we need to start figuring out and figuring out how all those things come together. So absolutely. And like you said, there is far more complicated decisions that need to be made on a retrofit stance when you have a lot of existing stuff. And also another example is you may have to do it from an existing standpoint for look and feel to match other areas too, from an aesthetic standpoint. So there's a whole lot of reasons. So I would say maybe it's not a religious war of key versus not key. Maybe it's just an option, right? Like we should look at it as you got what you need. And as more confidence happens, maybe there doesn't need to be rules in place. Also, I think the other rule of why it was put into place that I saw too is not everybody has a smartphone, right? And not everybody wants to use a phone to get in their place. So giving people the option, especially like I know in a couple of cases there was sort of worry that it was age discrimination and things like that. So giving the flexibility that people have to be able to go do that, I just think it's a good thing. And we probably as an industry could lead a little bit more on explaining to people, what the benefits of both of them versus the benefits of each of, negatives of each of them type thing. So I don't know. So what are your thoughts on, interconnected versus not versus like, is there really a difference that, I hear sometimes people like these certain locks because they feel they're more secure than others, or, it's a look and feel. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that end?
I guess that's really hard for me to answer because again, I think there's a couple of different thought processes there, right? And we want to deliver options in both categories that meet those demands, right? So the interconnected lock is a big one for us. We know there's a market for it. From a security standpoint, I think you'd be hard pressed to really prove that one is more secure than the other. Again, I think that comes down to more that gadget lock versus a capable commercial grade lock set, more so than a type of lock. Because you see whether it's an interconnected lock, a cylindrical lock, a mortise lock. There's certainly some differences between the way, a deadbolt locks and stuff like that and the mortise that adds some security to it. But I don't think the type of lock is going to really impact the secure aspect of it. It's more to me about the look and the operational function than it is about the security. And that was probably a really rambling answer. But
no. I think that's I think that's the honest answer, which is great, right? So it's like look and feel and sort of specification of what you'd like. So again, back to more of the ability for you to, as an end user or consumer, to make the decision of what you think best fits you. But I think also what you're showing is the complexity around these things and the needing to have both. I think having somebody on staff that can be an expert in this area and help lead the organization, as well as a good partner, whether it's on the installation end, whoever is the person that you can bring in as part of the team to go do that. And because there are so many options, that's sort of the testament to being able to partner properly to go do that. It's not something that, you just go look online and you're going to be able to purchase this online. I guess you could, but it's still somewhat more of a complicated purchase on that end, that there's so many options, and getting it right means that you need to have a good partner.
Agreed. I think the big thing is just having the conversation, right? Not just saying, here's the lock that we're putting on, but why are we choosing that one? What's the operational, how do we want a resident to interact with that lock once they're in their residence? How do we want the resident to interact with that lock when they leave the residence? Those sorts of things all impact what the best lock is for that unit door. So I think those are more of the conversations that need to be had versus is this secure or not secure? Because if you're working with a quality lock partner, the lock is going to be secure, right? If you're worried about that, you might want to look at a different partner, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, that's a good, that's an honest, good conversation, especially now where, again, it's a bit more mainstream, if you would, of being able to find resources. There's not like, one place to go. You got places to go do it. And there's a ton of resources that are out there. And, it's gone are the days of the decision where it's sort of like, do you want it to be in brass or silver? Or, now it's far more complicated. But and hopefully that doesn't come off as being somewhat overwhelming. It's actually more the fact that you have more options, and because you have more options, and it does a lot more than just keep bad people out. It adds a lot to resale value, opportunity to attract people, data. There's a lot that goes into it. Plus, keep bad people out. That
Yeah,
you should really
exactly.
take an honest look at it with a good partner on that end, and stay out of the religious wars of one or the other. So cool. I guess, Colin, any last comments or notes on this before we take off?
No, I don't have anything other than, have the conversation. I think it's similar to what we addressed last week with the credential conversation of there's a lot of really cool things happening with the lock. It's no longer just opening and closing. You can do a lot more with it, and you can really impact people's experiences with entering their units and their buildings and all of that. So find a good partner and have the conversation.
Absolutely. Well said. So we'll leave it on that note. So Colin, thank you again very much for taking the time to do this. Look forward to next week, and have a great rest of the week.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.